Hey, thanks for joining me today. If you're Portuguese, you probably have a pretty good idea of what dish I'm making today. This is collard greens and kale. Today I'm making the most famous soup in Portugal, Caldo Verde. So I actually grew up, cloves, collard greens are called cloves in Portugal. My dad was born Madeira, grew up with the stuff, and honestly, I hated it back then. But kale and some of these richer green, bitter greens are coming back in fashion. This dish is famous throughout Portugal. You'll see it in all the islands of Portugal and all the regions of Portugal. It's believed the Caldo Verde soup originated from the Minho region of northern Portugal. This is the most northwest region of Portugal, a little bit above the city of Port and the Douro Valley. It borders the Atlantic Ocean and Spain. Driving through there really reminded me of Northern California. Just a lot of lush valleys, very tall trees, pine trees I saw throughout the region. This is also the area where the famous Portuguese wine Vinho Verde comes from. Let's get to it. Okay, the first thing we'll do is chop up our kale. So in the beginning, since this part is still pretty thick, I don't want to waste it, but I'll cut it smaller. And now we'll try to get this pretty fine. I'm hoping to get like 1-inch squares, something like that. Something that would fit on a soup spoon. Now we'll get the kale. And usually this is done with, kale or collard greens. I happen to have kale at the farmer's market. Okay, now I'll cut my linguiça in medallions. There's always potatoes in Caldo Verde. I like to use two different potatoes. One, the russet, because russet potatoes break down. They kind of fall apart. Think of mashed potatoes. And that's why they're a great choice for mashed potatoes. Both russet and waxy type of potatoes have two types of starch, but the russet has more of the type of starch that just shreds. It doesn't hold together very well. Or waxy potatoes like reds or Yukon Golds, the starch, there's a predominant starch in these that holds up really well. After it's cooked in this soup, it will not disintegrate like a russet will. So what I like to do is put a russet, chop it up in really small pieces, probably like 1/4-inch, 1/2-inch pieces, and start that off right away. And that just kind of disintegrates into the soup and gives it body. And then I like the waxy type of potatoes, so you get little chunks of potato that don't disintegrate in there. That's just kind of like a preference I've always liked with soups. But you can use either one, but again, expect russets to break down and waxy potatoes to not break down. I have some homemade chicken stock. You can see how thick it is. That's a great sign that you pulled a lot of the collagen and protein, the gelatin, out of the bones, out of the chicken parts when making a stock. That's what to look for. I do have a video on making chicken stock and deboning chicken. You also could use store-bought chicken stock or water and chicken bouillon. So first thing I'll do is start to warm up my chicken stock so I could get my russet potatoes cooking. You can see how finely I diced up the russet potatoes, probably about a 1/4-inch dice. Okay, I have my pot with the stock and the russet potatoes are on the stove. Those will cook for about 15 minutes. I just want to give them a head start, let that russet potato break down a little bit. That'll be like a thickener for the soup. After I saute my ingredients, I'll add in the new potatoes or waxy potatoes. Again, you could use little red potatoes or what they call Yukon Gold. And these are about a 1/2-inch piece. These will get cooked, but they're not going to break down. So you'll get some of the texture of a nice bite of potato in your soup. My pan is hot. Now I'll add in extra virgin olive oil to saute my onions. You just want to cook it for about 5 to 10 minutes until translucent. And now I'll add the garlic in to saute for a little bit. Put in a little salt and pepper. Okay, now I'm going to add in the chouriço. Chouriço you could get at most markets. The one I found today, it wasn't encased the way you would see linguiça. It was uncooked chouriço. So I broke it up in pieces and I'm adding that to the pan. I'll cook it for about 5 minutes, then add my linguiça. Okay, now I'm just pulling out some of the russet potato. You can see how I can smash it very easily with a fork and it just turns into basically mashed potatoes. So that's why I add those, just for a little more body to the soup. Again, it's optional. Now I'm gonna add in the other potatoes. Those will cook for about 10 minutes. Then I'll add my onion mixture and my cloves. As always, you can find my recipes on justcookwithmichael.com or in the description area of the YouTube page. If you're in the mood for another soup, I made a delicious soup from the Madeira Islands called tomato and onion soup with poached egg. Okay, the linguiça and chouriço and onions have been cooking. Now I'm gonna add them all to the soup pot. I do have affiliate links in the description area of YouTube where you could find the products I use throughout my videos. If you want to order those, I get a little piece of that commission to help create these videos. It's been cooking for about 20 minutes since I added the kale. I already added about 2 cups of water. I just thought it was too thick, but it's really important with all cooking to taste. That's really good. Since I added water and I didn't have more of my homemade stock, with that 2 cups of water, I added about another teaspoon of chicken bouillon. So that was it. It smells delish. You can see I'm serving the soup with a little boule de coco. You can find that video on my website. Thanks for joining me for another Portuguese classic dish. Go cook this for your family. Now go cook for somebody you love.